the whole point of you coming to this channel is knowing that you're getting the education, you're getting the value, tuning in every single week, knowing that you're elevating yourself to a whole new level. So I really hope you enjoyed it, especially the part about associating yourself with the right people and really understanding what that means from a scientific level as well. And also about taking extreme ownership. It's so important. It's been a big part of my success, and I really want to push that message across to you all. If you can take more ownership in your life, you'll realize that it's always our fault, it's always your fault, and it comes from a position of strength. And when you can do that, your mindset will change for the better. Hello guys and girls, and welcome to another episode on the Falcon YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing really well and you've had a great month. I mean, we're just going into September now, and it is the last part of Q3. This is super important. I want to address this right now. The next 30 days is crucial. If you're a trader and you're joining us for the first time, we welcome you to the channel, and it's really important that you take this message on board. The last 30 days, what could you be doing right now to make sure that you're optimizing things as much as possible, ready for that Q4? And we hope you take so many valuable tips and advice from this channel moving forward to set yourself up for success. The hub for trading, mindset, tips, hacks, anything that you like that's going to elevate you to the next level. And let us know in the comments if you've been enjoying our content recently and if there's anything in particular that you would like to see more of. So the Falcon FX show, we absolutely love doing this, and we've had so much feedback. So welcome to another episode of the Falcon FX show, and we're going to be diving into so many areas. Top 3 pairs moving forward for the month. There's some juicy pairs that you need to focus on regardless of how you're trading. I'm going to be taking you through the recap of my favorite trade of the month, which turned out really, really nicely. It was so clean, and overall the market conditions are solid. I'm also going to be sharing a chapter of my book that I think is very relevant to trading, giving you a bit of an update on that as well, and also a mindset tip that you're going to absolutely love. So without further ado, really excited. Make sure that you're ready, and as always, let's get started. Right guys, so for chapter of the month, I actually want to read you just a tiny little bit from my own book. So 10 steps to achieving the goals. I've got a lot of requests of this recently, and I'm actually revamping it. So I've got some new chapters that are going in. There's going to be a whole new relaunch. I've got super exciting things about that. So of course I will keep you updated, most likely over on my personal channel for that. But there's a topic that's really important that links to trading very well. So in chapter 6, I talk about people to associate with. Now we talk about this in Falcon a lot. You know, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with. You may have even heard me talk about the science behind it, which I'll briefly talk about now. Now remember, we on average have 70,000 thoughts per day. Now they've done studies on this that out of those thoughts, 80% of them are negative, and then over 90%, pretty much 95% are exactly the same thoughts the next day. So you might be thinking, why is that important to me? Well, if you're trying to achieve goals, you want to be a full-time trader, you want to trade more capital, you really want to push yourself and create the goals of your dreams, but you're spending this loop effect every single day, every single week, every single month of thinking the same way, having the same thoughts over and over again, but you're expecting things to change in your life. It simply won't work. So in order to change your life, you need to change your thoughts. And how do you change your thoughts? Well, you change the kind of dialogue and conversations that you have with people. So what do you do there? You associate with the right people. So you see, this is not an opinion-based thing, this is a scientific thing. So the reason why they say you are the average of the 5 is because whatever thoughts you're absorbing is essentially how you think, your beliefs, your character, and who you become. So it's really, really important that you get around the right people. And one exercise that I talk about in my book is called green and red flags. See, this is super, super important. The easiest way, because you might be thinking, well, how do I know, Mark, who to surround myself with? Because I've got some childhood friends that they're really good, you know, I like them, you know, we get on really well. There's 2 sides to it. So there's a side of it of you want to surround yourself with people that push you higher. So they are either more advanced than you, or they may be in the same niche as you, but they have more experience. So naturally they're going to rub off on you. They may be more further along in the journey, perfect. But at the same time, you have to combine that with values. So the way I like to separate it is green and red flags. And you can do this exercise straight away. So essentially, think about people that you spend the most time with and start to just write it down. Now, on the red flag side of things, and you want to label this, is the kind of people that you're surrounded by, but they tend to bring you down, unenthusiastic, don't really support you with your goals, tend to be quite negative, they complain a lot, unambitious, this type of stuff. Because whether we like it or not, it could be friends and family, we have them in our lives. But the point of this exercise is that you want to bring awareness to it, because people get caught into this loop of, well, that's my brother, or that's my dad, that's my sister, that's my mum, so I need to share my goals. And you've probably found before where you get really excited, you're talking about your trading journey or other goals as well, and you want to share it. And you keep sharing the same goals with people, and you're expecting a different response. So it's important for you to, you don't always have to remove these people, but just be aware that that's a red flag. You're not going to keep going into the same loop of sharing your goals with people that you know you're just going to get this reaction that doesn't believe in you and doesn't support you. So why waste the time and energy? So once you've got your red flags, then you've got your green flags. Your green flags are the people that bring you up, lift you higher, the people that support you, push you, the people that tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear all the time. These people, when you find them, you keep them close. And then you look at the values as well. Are these good people? Are these the kind of people that you aspire to be? Are these the kind of people that you would recommend other people to hang around with? You know, do they actually share the right type of values? Because it's not just about that person has money and success, so I want to associate myself with them, because they may not have the values that align with you as a person. So it's important that it's not just the people you associate with that are, let's say, in the position that you wish to be. It's the people that you associate with that vibrate the similar type of energy, good people. Those are the people that you want to keep close. So I highly recommend from this chapter, from my book, like I said, I will be doing a relaunch, but just right now, even without the book, an exercise that you can do straight away. If you're really serious about success, from a spiritual level, scientific level, you have to have the right people, the right type of community around you. And you are the average of the 5, so you need to really label that out. So what I recommend that you do is just spend some time thinking about it. What are the red flags in your life, green flags in your life? Just limit the amount of time that you spend with the red flags and increase the amount of time that you spend with the people that you've highlighted as green flags. I promise you this. Energetically, the way that you feel, your confidence, it will all change. Excited for it, but that is chapter of the month. I hope this brought you value, guys and girls, and excited to get into the next part. Right guys, so in mindset tip of the month, we're going to be talking about a book actually, which is Extreme Ownership. Let me know in the comments if you've already read this book. See, this was recommended to me by my good friend, Jimmy Nareen. He's actually just been staying with me recently, and he spoke at the Falcon FX conference. He's done an incredible workshop with the community. This was absolutely unreal. So definitely go and check out our previous episodes and some snippets on that. But he introduced me to this book. I've not read this yet, but I've got a deep insight already, so I can't wait to dig into it. And normally I wouldn't recommend a book that I've not read, but on the recommendation of Jimmy, you know, I take that as gospel. So from this perspective of this book, I mean, Extreme Ownership, how does that link to trading? Well, you might be wondering, what elements does that apply to me? Well, a big element, because in life, what we tend to do is that we pass the blame. We don't take full responsibility for situations. And even sometimes we think, oh, but it's that person's fault. But it's important that you develop this mentality of actually taking full ownership. So I won't spoil you with the stories of Extreme Ownership, but I highly recommend that you go and check it out, and I can't wait to go into as much detail. But one of the brief stories in there was when they was fighting each other by accident. So they was at war, they're fighting each other, and the commander essentially said, it's his fault. So everybody owned up because they had the right mentality of like, well, no, it was my fault. He asked each individual, whose fault is it? Someone said, well, I'm in logistics, so it was my fault. He said, no, it's not your fault. Whose fault is it? Someone else said, he said, listen guys, no one's fault but my fault. I'm running the show and I take full responsibility. Now that is what true leadership is. We see this in sports as well. For those of you that follow football managers, if somebody loses, if they lose a game, they don't blame the players, they blame themselves because they understand the authority and the position that they're in. Now we need to take that same practice in our own life. Remember, you are the commander of your own ship. So you are the captain. So in your life, when you are the captain of your goals and the things that you want to achieve, you have to see every situation that way, that you need to take full ownership, because extreme ownership is understanding that no matter what happens, there was always a way that you can take responsibility. So let's say, for example, you think it's someone's fault. But then you can say, do you know what? It's my fault because I could have prepared better and I could have communicated my message better, and then that way things would have been more clearer for that person to then not make the mistake. So you see how it doesn't matter what situation it is, there's a time and a place, but there are ways that you can train your mind into taking full responsibility, extreme ownership. And you might be thinking, well, why do I need to take extreme ownership? Well, when you're embarking on the journey to be a trader, there's lots of things that are going to come your way which you're going to blame. Brokers, stop hunting, educators, strategy, people, family, friends, you name it, you'll have a list, and it goes on, and trust me, I've been there before. But the reality of the situation is that things start to shift and things start to change for you as soon as you start to take extreme ownership. So I encourage you to think about that thought at the moment. How would your life be day to day if you actually started to take extreme ownership just in everything? How much better would you feel? Because when you step into your leadership, woman or man, guy or girl, it really doesn't matter. When you step into your leadership of where you need to be, and you are the captain of your ship and of your goals, of your future, you realize that the only way to get to the next level and to new levels and to truly succeed, if you want to make big change and lifelong generational wealth, extreme ownership, it's an absolute must. It's something that I've been doing unconsciously for years and years, and it's amounted to so much wealth in my life. So I am beyond excited to tuck into this book, so I highly recommend it. Can't wait, and let me know if you've read it, any thoughts, any comments on that. But guys, if you're in this trading journey, you need to learn to take extreme ownership, and things will change dramatically for you in a positive way. Right guys, so now trade of the month. So trade of the month for us was New Zealand CAD. Now a lot of the community caught this trade. This was actually I spoke about in the show last week. If you remember what I was talking about, Kiwi CAD for the sell in this area, and we sold off nicely. It didn't catch the whole move, but very nice trade indeed. And we'll just cover that very quickly. So Kiwi CAD to the downside. Let us know in the comments, by the way, for anybody that did get involved in Kiwi CAD, whether you're part of Falcon or not. Really great trade, high time frame structure. Very clear, and again, top-down analysis, things that we look for. It's very systemized what we do. Once you really take the time to learn the strategy, that's how we focus on things. We have our processes in place and we stick to them. So this was a very typical structure that we look, very much a reversal pattern in the right area. So essentially what we're doing, if you're joining the channel for the first time, by the way, make sure that you are subscribed and you're always in the loop, because we're going to be dropping so many things on here. So essentially, what we do is we identify the most valuable areas. So if I actually go back to the daily and start it, if you're learning your strategy, what you essentially want to do, you're most likely looking at a high time frame unless you're scalping on, the 15-minute chart or something different. But for most people, you're looking at top-down analysis. So you're looking at high time frame structure. So all we do is we identify, okay, this is a very valuable area for a sell, or this is a very valuable area for a buy. So you want to be taking the majority of your trades in those high value areas. Now you might be thinking, well, it's not always going to be in a high value area. Well, you've got so many pairs to choose from. Now, although you don't want 28 pairs on your list every single week, you want to narrow those down. But more often than not, other pairs, you've got them to pick, and they're in decent value areas. So we highlighted that on New Zealand CAD. It was in a decent area. It's quite corrective by nature. So what I mean by that, it's very wicky. It moves sideways. It's not as clear or clean. But when it shows something very clean in this area, this is the go-to. So with Kiwi CAD, majority of the time you see this messy type price action. If you look around here, it's just pure mess. But in these areas, once you see a clean structure, a clean pattern, then you go for it. It's an absolute no-brainer. So this one was so clear. Utilizing our rule of 3 as well, which we recently brought out our new quick tip season. Quick tip season 4 has been absolutely unreal. The feedback, by the way, has been just astounding. The amount of consistency that people will now break through from the rule of 3 will be unreal. So beyond excited for the impact of that for the months to come, but the feedback already has been overwhelming. So really happy with that. And if you're a Falcon member, I really appreciate the feedback. So this was a typical example of the rule of 3. And we executed this position once we actually got confirmation from the market. There were 2 or 3 ways to take it. This one ended in 5.6 for me. So tidy profit, really happy with that, especially at scale, and realizing that could I have done more? Well, you look at it and you think, well, how comes you didn't get out here or here in these areas? Could have ended up with about 19%, but shoulda, coulda. It's not about that, it's about consistency. And in this area, was I willing to hold through this pullback here? No, it wasn't, because how at this point would we know that's going to stop? Would have gone all the way back. And the thing is, you got to think about it from just a reality scale. Let's say, for example, for argument's sake, that's 20K profit at this point. Are you happy that pulling back by 12K? Are you happy at going all the way back to here and maybe even taking a break even? And then what when that 20K is 50K, then 70K, then 80K? See, through my experience of scale, this is something people don't understand. So if you've never traded at scale, you don't understand these emotions. So if people are recommending to you to just hold these positions, it's fine. Look, if you would have left your stop here, then look, you would have made 58%. Yeah, that person's not traded any real money, or not anything decent anyway. So you've got to understand that we are humans, so we will experience emotion, and this idea of becoming a robot doesn't actually exist. You can do your best to it, and there may be a small percentage of people that can hold their nerve, but for the majority of us, we are involved in money to somewhat degree. So 5.6%, I'll take that all day long, every single time, regardless. So it's just about having that thought process in your mind, knowing that when you take a trade, you don't infatuate over, I could have made this and I could have made that. That's going to put you in a wrong framework. Be grateful that you're actually making profit in the first place and you're being consistent. That's the most important thing. So really happy with the trade. So I wanted to share that with you guys. There were a few others as well. I actually took quite a few break evens this month, but still ended with a decent percentage. So really happy with that across the board. And yeah, let us know in the comments, what was your trade of the month? What did you take, however you're trading, and how much percentage did you bank on that, and how much did you risk, more importantly, as well? Right guys, so now for your top 3 for the month of September. So the last part of Q3, this is important. So hopefully you already got some great tips from us already from these forecasts and you took full advantage of them. So just want to give you some 3 highlights to focus on for the month and more to come. So we've been talking about pound dollar. If you look at pound dollar all the way through, by the way, we've been looking at pound dollar for the sell all the way to this low and then this move to the upside. So structurally, this has been playing out super, super well. And there's one little lesson that I want to show you with this pattern here. We won't go into too much into detail, but these patterns are super profitable. Now, as far as patterns go, there's various different forms, but this one is our go-to. So when we see something like this, the likelihood of this selling off to the downside is very high. Whether this goes all the way back to the low or not, that remains to be seen. We may just be pulling back and then moving higher, because the high time frame structure is to the upside, as we were talking about in previous shows. We were talking about pound dollar and pound yen in particular, moving to these areas, which we didn't quite get all the way to the low, and then seeing this as a continuation to move higher. And now we're at these areas. So again, going back to what I spoke about in the recap, the trade of the month, well, what do we want to be looking for? Identifying high value areas. Where are we now? We're in a high value area. So what do we need to do? We need a plan, we need a strategy. So for those of you that have a strategy, you have a plan, we're looking for some selling opportunities potentially on pound dollar there, but just understand that we may not go all the way to the low, but even playing the pullback there to move higher, that would be solid. And if it does turn out to be a trade to the downside, then we'll keep riding it. It's about not being so attached to your bias and taking messages from the market. So for us, pound dollar in these areas, that is looking stunning, looking for that for a lovely sell-off, and we'll see how far that goes, but it's getting very, very close indeed. So I'm expecting pound dollar to be a solid trade for September. So that is pound dollar, and again, just going out to the weekly chart, it's important that you zoom out and you look at it for what it really is. You look at the bigger picture. The reality of the situation is that this looks very, very clear structure. And if it does move to the downside, then perfect. We get a brilliant sell-off, and then we will be buying that to the upside. If it's a shorter pullback than we expected, well then that's fine. We bank our profit, we move on, we take a message from the market, and then we get long once the market gives us permission, rather than what we think has to happen. So that's pound dollar, so keep an eye out for those 2 thought processes. Pound yen, so pound yen, we was talking about pound yen here, just go to the daily chart. So if you remember on the previous show, we was talking about pound yen potentially getting to this low, and then moving to the upside, but knowing it doesn't have to come all the way to the low and it can start to reverse. This was a slightly trickier one. There were entries, of course, on the way up, but a little bit different in terms of entry, but it still moved in the direction that we was looking at from a structural perspective. So move up, corrective pattern here, and then a move to the upside. But now it's super interesting. So if we just go more naked charts and we look at it for what it is, a lot of you will be familiar with double tops, double bottoms, triple tops, that kind of stuff. What have we done in this area? So we've broken the double top. How do we break the double top? Well, depending on how you trade, this bit of information is crucial to whether you want to buy or you want to sell. Is this catching traders on the wrong side of the market for the next impulsive wave lower? I do believe so. How low does that go? Well, that remains to be seen. The real low we want to be looking at is here. So for clarity reasons and simplicity, this is what we're looking for. This push and this impulsive wave to the downside. How it gets there, whether it gets there impulsive or corrective, that could change, but judging off of this structure, we're expecting this to be quite aggressive, but we will see, we'll take those messages from the market. So naturally we are looking for sells on pound yen. Now some of you might be thinking, well, it broke out of this resistance. If you're trading that way, surely that's a retest and then we're going to move higher. Well, I could find you millions of examples of when that doesn't happen and sometimes when it does happen. So it really does depend on how you're looking at the markets. There's no right or wrong there, but what we'll be looking at based off of this wave here is a particular pattern which is just starting to form. So we're really looking for corrective structures in these areas to then be looking for that move to the downside. The real move happens, in my opinion, is when we do break below here, because then that stops any kind of indication that we might be heading higher, because it's a possibility. We know there's a probable and the possible. But once price is down in these areas and then we've got corrective patterns, then as long as you know what you're doing with these structures, you have an actual strategy and a plan, you'll be able to benefit immensely in that wave to the downside. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how pound yen plays out. This is going to be one of my favorites for September. I can already see it. And last but not least in the top three for the months to come is Kiwi dollar. So Kiwi dollar, another example of the rule of three, which we just launched in Quick Tips. Again, high value area. Most of you will know what a double top is. And as far as patterns go, I mean, this is so clean, so clear. This last leg is important. If you're in Falcon, then you'll know how to deal with that. If you're not, then make sure that you do have a few strategies in place. You've got your risk management on point and you know how to deal with that. Can this only go to the downside? Of course not. This can still actually break to the upside. There is momentum that would suggest this can break up, but for us, that would give us a message from the market that we're moving to the upside and the pattern is void and it's changed. But as far as we see it fit right now, we're looking for this trade to the downside. And then we will assess it at this low. If we break this low aggressively, then we're going to keep going. If not, we'll see how to deal with that scenario. But Kiwi dollar, I mean, this is as clear as day. This is the kind of trade we want to be looking for. So looking to see how many entries we can get on that one. So again, as far as top three goes, a couple of pound pairs, which are solid. I think pound yen is going to be a really interesting one. Pound dollar from a pattern play is super clear. And then Kiwi dollar from a structured area, the value area, the cleanness of the pattern. You know, this is replicated time and time. You can find so many examples on this on high time frame, on lower time frames. So yeah, guys, just a very quick top three there, and I hope you enjoyed that and you take that moving forward. And just overall, really happy with the conditions, the way that the market's going right now. And I think it's really important that as we're moving into the business end of the year of trading, it's really important that you know and you seek out the most profitable opportunities. You're clear on how you're trading, you've got your risk management on point, and you're taking full advantage because there are some big moves to come. So be as focused and as dialed in as possible. So I hope you enjoyed that for the top three, and let me know if there's anything else that's sticking out that you're looking at for the months to come. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. We really enjoyed filming this one as there's so many important key nuggets and lessons there. So hopefully you had a pen and paper and you was taking some notes away. The whole point of you coming to this channel is knowing that you're getting the education, you're getting the value, tuning in every single week, knowing that you're elevating yourself to a whole new level. So I really hope you enjoyed it, especially the part about associating yourself with the right people and really understanding what that means from a scientific level as well. And also about taking extreme ownership. It's so important. It's been a big part of my success. And I really want to push that message across to you all. If you can take more ownership in your life, you'll realize that it's always our fault, it's always your fault, and it comes from a position of strength. And when you can do that, your mindset will change for the better. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let us know in the comments your number one takeaways, any particular pairs that you're focusing on, and how your month has been for August. What were the trades that stuck out to you, and is there anything that you're looking at for September? Remember, guys, last 30 days, let's really get dialed in now because the momentum is going to kick us on for Q4. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have an incredible weekend.